Good morning, listeners. I'm here today to talk about a controversial subject which is important to all Australians. Should we accept recycled sewage in our water supply? My answer is yes, but for specific usage only. I'm sure most Australians would feel fine about watering their gardens with recycled sewage, but would they really feel comfortable with drinking it? Imagine sipping on a cup of tea made with water that possibly once contained feces, urine, vomit, blood, or mucus. The thought of it is very disgusting, even though it may have been filtered many times. We, as Australians, have been educated to know that any contact with sewage is dangerous as it may be a risk to our health. Therefore, human consumption of water that was once sewage is way beyond the boundary. Despite the fact that sewage water goes through a filtering process, the question still exists. Can we really trust this recycling process that is dependent on machines, and the fact that there could be human error in controlling those machines? How safe really is this? Even if there is a small malfunction, the consequences are dire. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't accept recycled sewage water in our water supply altogether. I'm saying we shouldn't accept it for drinking purposes. There are many other uses for recycled sewage water other than drinking it. It can benefit the conservation of water for our beautiful country. If Australia takes the correct actions towards water conservation and usage, there will be a financial cost, but at the same time it will create much needed employment, especially in today's economic crisis. The psychological aspect of drinking recycled sewage water is enough to turn off Australians. Nearly half of us believe recycled sewage water contains human waste, and really, once upon a time, it did. We all know where sewage water stems from: our toilets, sinks, showers, and the list goes on. With almost 30% of Australians believing that recycled water is disgusting, clearly shows that the psychological aspect of drinking recycled sewage water can't be ejected from the Australian psyche. Because we are a well-educated nation, we've been brought up knowing that we should never mix our drinking water supplies with our wastewater for health reasons. The separation of drinking water supplies from sewage systems has been the most intelligent development in the health world that has prevented typhoid and cholera epidemics. So here we are today in the 21st century being asked to reverse what we've learned, introducing recycled sewage water for us to drink. I don't think so. Now just for a moment, listeners, imagine you work at the sewage purifying plant. You're going about your daily work and suddenly you realize you've made a slight error in operating one of the filtering machines. Maybe you let this slip by because you don't want to tell your boss, which may jeopardize your employment. Next week, headlines in all the newspapers are saying thousands ill with cholera. In this scenario, if this water would have been used for every purpose rather than drinking, no one would have been hurt. Do you think accidents can't happen? Remember the Chernobyl nuclear station in Russia? Well, deadly mechanical or human error could occur in a sewage recycling plant too. So I'm sure you're all wondering what the solution is. Well, all dam water should be filtered in government-run purification plants to keep the integrity of the water, bottled and delivered to every household in Australia. This would create massive employment, which is much needed in today's economic climate. Prior to the 1960s, milk, cream, bread, and ice were all home delivered. So why can't bottled water be delivered now? If the government were to implement this program nationwide, recycled sewage water could be strictly used for industrial, commercial, agriculture, and even household use. Water from the household tap would be used for everything except drinking, as occurs in many countries in Asia. Of course, the government would have to fund the program initially and educate the public. By doing this, the ocean around Australia would be cleaner because there would be much less effluent being pumped into it every day. The solution would also be fantastic for conservation because the water would be continuously recycled. So, to conclude, the former Prime Minister, John Howard, stated that recycled sewage water is part of the solution. Part of the solution, my view is, yes, for every other water use except drinking. If recycled water is used for other purposes that don't include physical intake, then I'm sure Australians wouldn't have an issue with it at all. I therefore believe that the National Water Commission and federal government must listen to everyday Australians' views and those state governments, Victoria and Queensland, that have rejected the recycled water for drinking already. It's clear that the majority of Australians are against drinking recycled sewage water because of their educated respect for hygiene. It's their duty to speak up in forums and give positive feedback on how to solve the issue, such as my suggestion of dam water being used strictly for drinking and using recycled sewage water for everything else. The government needs to come up with a solution that the vast majority is happy with. Perhaps they may even listen to my solution. Thank you for listening attentively.